So 3i Atlas, for anyone who hasn't heard of it, it was first discovered on July 1st, 2025. This is 2025, so this year. It's called 3/Atlas. It's written like this in case people don't know and you want to Google it. But 3 stands for the third, and the /I is for
You can show it.
Okay, I'll show it. So I'll write it like this. So it's written like this: 3/I Atlas. 3 stands for the third. This is the third known interstellar object ever tracked in the history of, well, ever, because we don't know of any other history. I stands for interstellar, which means this object originated outside of our solar system, somewhere deep in the Milky Way. And Atlas is from the instrument that found it in Chile. It's the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact. Atlas stands for the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. So that's what it is. So the first two that we found in 2018, I think, was called Oumuamua. That was really weird. That was the first interstellar object we'd ever seen. And some people speculated that it was exhibiting properties that may not be natural, specifically its trajectory coming in. 3i Atlas as well is coming in at a weird trajectory. It's coming in at a hyperbolic orbit, meaning it's coming into our solar system so fast that it's not getting dragged by the sun. So every other asteroid and meteor that we've seen, they get stuck in the sun's gravity. And that's why Halley's Comet comes around X amount of years. You know, Da Vinci was born when it was there and died the day it passed again. But these objects are whipping through and then they just keep going. The second one was called 2i Borisov. That turned out to just be a comet. But Oumuamua and 3i Atlas, we don't know what they are. They're being labeled as a comet right now.
I'm already confused.
Okay.
And the reason that I'm already confused is that you're saying it's only the third interstellar object, but I was under the impression that we see comets, meteors, meteorites all the time.
Yeah. So they're all from within our solar system.
Really?
And they're just kind of looping all around and they're stuck to the hyperbolic orbit.
So is 3i Atlas the sort of interstellar matter, object, etc., that we hypothesize created things like the Grand Canyon and the Tunguska effect?
Like the thing that killed the dinosaurs?
Allegedly.
Well, those probably would have been considered interstellar objects, I would think.
Okay.
But this, we don't know. They think if it's natural, they're estimating that this object could be 11, 12 billion years old, which is significantly older than our sun. And it's really weird. So when we first saw this object in July, it was already entering our solar system, but it's moving fast. It was moving at like 62 kilometers a second, which is fast. If it was here on Earth, it could go from New York to LA in like 3 minutes, which is fast. You know, so it's whipping through here. And back then we picked it up and Hubble got a pretty cool picture of it. And back then it was in July, it was red, which, you know, we could tell stuff about the chemical compositions. And then sometime in September, it started going green. And that's interesting to us because that means different things are being emitted and stuff. Now, most comets have literally a tail. Think of a comma, like, you know, a comma.
Of course.
That's a comma. Right. And a comma is literally because it has a tail. Right. That's what a comet is. And for the longest time, this object did not have a tail. So they called it an anti-comet or a dark comet because they don't know what it is. But I question people to go, if it doesn't have a tail, how is it a comet? And I guess we just don't have enough sample size to know what the heck this thing was. Initially, it had a front tail, meaning it was emitting from the front. And it almost looked like a big blue headlight.
Okay.
And that was interesting for people because, you know, there's solar winds, there's gravitational waves in space. So for it to be emitting from the front going that fast, it doesn't really make sense. So this has been speculating, some people, including a very esteemed Israeli Harvard scientist called Avi Loeb, Aviloeb. He first theorized that if first interstellar object, Oumuamua, and now 3i Atlas could be essentially, it could be some sort of non-natural technology. That's where it gets really interesting. And he was just on the Joe Rogan podcast this week. And there's been lots of talk about the 3i Atlas. I'll stop talking. You can ask some questions.
So what do you mean by non-natural? Is that just a way of saying something created through a technology?
Yeah. So if it's If it's natural, it's one of the oldest things we've ever seen in the world, and like one of the oldest objects ever, like literally older than our solar system, meaning whatever caused this thing to break off and shoot off from maybe an exploded planet or whatever this thing is. It happened so long ago that we didn't even have a sun back then, let alone Earth. Earth's like 4.5 billion years old. The sun, I think, is 5 or 6 billion years old. This thing is twice that. That's really old. So, and it would have had to already preformed. And they don't think the entire universe is only about 13.6 billion years old. So for this thing to have already formed and exploded and shot out here, what is that? So either the universe is way older. The other thing that's weird is it doesn't have a tail. Most comets outgas water. It's almost always icy snowballs. That's what a comet is. It's not, I don't think they call it an asteroid. I think they think it's a comet. And a comet.
What's the difference? What's the difference between an asteroid and a comet and a meteorite? Why don't you tell us the differences between those 4 things?
Those are 3.
4. Meteor, meteorite, comet, asteroid.
So an asteroid is just a big icy snowball. And a meteorite and an asteroid are sort of in the same vein. It's just rock, depending on the composition. And a meteorite is bits and pieces of a meteor that has come down and broken off and shot everywhere, generally. Now, I can double check the difference, because there's going to be people watching this, but let me just double check. So let me just make sure I wasn't wrong here. So comets are icy big dust balls. Yep. Dirty snowballs. That's what I said. Asteroids are rocky or metallic objects found mostly in the asteroid belt around Mars and Jupiter. And meteors are just small rocks floating through space. So asteroids are kind of stuck in that asteroid belt, and sometimes they pop out. And meteors are like comets. They're just flying through space. One's dirty snowball, one's metal or rock. That's the difference. But this thing, they call it a comet, but it's not really expelling that much water. Now, there was a thing saying,
is it expelling any?
It is expelling a little bit. And initially they said, it's expelling so much. They estimate this thing at 33 billion tons, which is a lot, which means the size of it's like, they thought it was only 500 meters across. Now they're saying it could be 5 or 6 kilometers across, maybe more. And this changes every day. The time this podcast comes out.
It'll probably be this coming Monday.
Okay, so on the 3rd. So today is just the 30th, and it's an important day because yesterday was an important day, and I'll talk about that later. But it's outgassing its tail. There is a tail now, but it's huge. And what they're finding is some interesting things. They're finding it's expelling nickel, and there's no presence of iron. Why is that important? We've seen in nature sometimes the presence of nickel only with iron, and it's really hot and heated up, not usually in a comet because a comet's a dirty snowball. And you see that there, but we're seeing nickel without iron. And the only other place we've ever seen that as humans is when we industrial produce nickel using, manufactured processes. So that's raising eyes right now. Some other interesting stuff has happened. One of the biggest things I want to talk about is that we want to take pictures of this object. And the Hubble telescope took a picture. It was pretty good. The James Webb telescope took one, but that was like the end of July and maybe one in August. But we're almost in November. So what happened? Well, it's coming in to our solar system on a hyperbolic trajectory. So it's not around it. It's also coming close to the ecliptic.
Okay.
Which means, think of,
Yeah, I have a globe behind.
Yeah, perfect. So pretend this is, the sun.
So we're pretending this is the sun, not Earth.
All of the planets, they don't rotate around it randomly like an atom. We rotate around at the, right sort of in the middle. And objects can come into space anyway. And it's coming within 5 degrees of this ecliptic, where all the planets, think of a visible plate around the center of the sun. All the planets sort of go around that, like the Saturns of Jupiter. That's really rare that it's coming in, against our orbit. So meaning all the planets are going one direction. It's going against that. And it's coming in within 5 degrees of the ecliptic, meaning it's going to pass right parallel to all the planets in other solar system to go close to the planets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a concern about collision?
No, not as of today. It's because the interesting thing about 3i Atlas is that when it would be closest to the Earth for picture taking, meaning it's lined up, we're here, it's here, and the sun is in front of it. So we actually can't see it when we want to see it, which is really interesting. So this is the sun, here's the Earth. It's over by the camera, and we're not going to see it again actually until today. Today is when we first saw it after about 3 weeks of being behind the sun, and we don't know what the hell it is, what it's doing. Is it going faster? Is it going slower? Is it changing trajectory? And if it did, then maybe there's some issues about, will it hit us or not? Now, if it did hit us, the size of Manhattan, it's comparable to the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs, or maybe the dinosaurs were killed by a meteor because it was probably interstellar. This is one of the most interesting objects that we've ever witnessed. And the weird thing is, while it passed right by Mars, I think within 33 million kilometers, which is pretty close in the space, it's like 0.19 astronomical units, meaning the distance between here and the sun. All of those instruments took pictures. Great. We've got the Mars rover, we've got different satellites, we've got different sensors, and nothing's been released because the day before the US government shutdown happened. Now, that's fueling a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff, but it just sucks because, sure, you can shut down the government, but I don't think an object hurling through space cares about a country's internal politics. And unfortunately, most of space, even though it's no one can own space, the best instruments we have are operated with NASA. So the fact that we haven't seen any of these images for pretty much the whole month of October is frustrating me and a lot of people. And it's really fueling the stupid conspiracy theories all out there.
Like what?
Like they're withholding it on purpose because they've found that it's an alien mothership, stuff like that. I'm not going to say it's not something alien technology, but I don't know if there would be things walking around living, because unless this thing can travel way faster than it's going, and it's already going super fast, it would have to be what's called a multi-generational starship, which we have considered. Meaning, if we wanted to go to the closest star system, I don't know which one it is, Andromeda or something, it would take, I don't know, a couple hundred, maybe even 1,000 years, going at an incredible speed. So they've considered building a multi-generational starship so big that 100 generations of humans would have to be born, have kids, raise them, die on that ship, so that your great, 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 great grandchildren might reach that star system. So it just doesn't seem feasible.
It doesn't seem feasible to the people conceptualizing it this way, because it's coming from a desperate attempt to position this thing that's not of our making, nor within our typical worldview, and to make it as such.
Okay. Yeah.
This is the problem, this has become dangerously entranced by technology and engineering at the expense of art, history, and design. We really don't know what it is. And rather than looking at it and saying, okay, well, let's just observe it and see what happens, there's this rush to fit it into a paradigm that we've created, when in fact, this might be the object or the moment or the phenomenon that breaks the current astronomical paradigm that we're inside of right now.
Yeah, space it blows my mind. This object also, I joined one of those Facebook groups, and I'm a pretty big, open-minded person, but these groups, AI is now putting out so much crap, and a lot of people thought Professor Avi Loeb said, pack your bags before the 29th of October, which on this podcast was yesterday. And everyone thought that means it was supposed to reach Earth and blah, blah, blah. People have no idea. It's supposed to be.
Wait, he said that, or that was an AI generation?
That's a good thing. I think it was a misquote, and there's lots of AI stuff. So the reason yesterday was an important day was 3i Atlas reached perihelion. Perihelion is when the object is coming at its closest point to the sun. That's it. So we have a perihelion every year. And then we kind of go away, because it's not, we don't stay at the same distance from the sun every year. We come around it. That's why we have summer and spring and all that stuff. So I was just trying to explain to people in those groups that that's what yesterday was. However, as of today, now we've gone close enough around, that we're able to finally see it again. And what's weird is that now it's gone from, it was red, then it was green. Now it's emitting this brilliant blue color, which can be common with a comet, but it also looks really energized. Like the light refracting off of it it looks supercharged. It's crazy. And if that is the case, and it was technological, you would want to wait till your closest approach to the sun to sort of recharge your battery if you were an interstellar object. Meaning, like, this thing came into our solar system and went so close to all the planets. It was beautiful. Like, maybe I could send you a graphic. You can put it up right here. But It came so close to Mars. It's going so close. I think it's going to go close when Venus.
So is it within our solar system now?
Yes, it's now it's halfway through. As of October 29th, it's halfway through. And we're going to come around. Now we're going to see it. We're going to see it from the side now. Before we were looking at it head on. So you can't really see how big it is because it depends on what angle it's at. So now we're going to see it from the side and as it leaves. It's unless it is alien and wants to come check us out, we'll never see it again. It's a one and done. That's why comets come and go.
Okay.
This is a one and done. So it's blue now. And what's crazy, and this is breaking news, scientists are very interested. Now a lot of people are interested, is that it emitted a radio signal or a frequency recently as of 29th, 30th of October, as we popped around at 1420 megahertz, which is a very common frequency.
Yes.
And that's, objects can reflect things and emit frequencies, but it did it in the Fibonacci sequence. Which is like where the every number is the sum of the last one. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, and so on. 2, 3, 3, 5. We've seen that sequence in nature. Leaves have it, beautiful pattern, people do it in art, but it's also mathematical. It's mathematical. It reminds me of the movie that I just watched recently, and it was written by Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan was a beautiful scientist, astrophysicist, like Contact. And in Contact, that's when Jodie Foster worked for SETi, which I've been to SETi. We could talk about that. SETi's the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It's in New Mexico, a big, very large array. It's beautiful. And I found it by accident, but she's looking for something and she finds something in in a star system that is too young. But the first signal received in that one was Hitler. And everyone's like, oh my God, we spent our whole lives trying to get rid of this monster. And that's our cosmic ambassador. But why is that important? In 1936, as a sign of German power and ingenuity and technology, that was the first space broadcast radio transmission during the 1936 Berlin Games. And in this, story, they received it. They go, oh, we hear you. Thank you for reaching out. We're going to bounce it back to let you know we got it. And then within that code, they realized they also were sending the schematics to build, a machine that would allow them to communicate with us or see us, maybe a wormhole or something. So the fact that this object just recently was emitting even anything on a radio wave, especially in a mathematical sequence, that adds more fuel to the mystery of this 3-eye atlas.
Now, it doesn't, in all of the conversations that I've heard about this subject, there doesn't seem to be a lot of excitement, wonder, and fascination. There seems to be a lot of doom, gloom, and panic. What are the actual concerns? I'm not talking about the conspiracy theories. I'm talking about the concerns.
So one of the concerns from a pure scientific perspective is if this is alien technology or a probe in the way that Voyager is now, it's crazy. This thing would have to travel so far to get here. We sent Voyager out in like late 70s, 77 or something. And Voyager is now only one light day away. And the closest star system to us, I think, is like 26 light years away. So Voyager is only one light day away. So the concern is, if it's an alien technology, what does it want? But one of the biggest concerns is that we find out it is alien and it keeps going. What does that mean for us? That our first encounter with aliens was equivalent to like an ant trying to flag down a bicyclist and the bicyclist just keeps going. You might even see the ant, but it's so much more primitive and minuscule compared to you that you're gonna go. The other thing that scientists are wondering what this could be is called a planet seeder, which I love. I think of this as a dandelion seed blowing in the wind. Think of that big cluster of seeds when a dandelion in the summer blows off, and when it blows, seeds fly off, but the cluster stays together. I think of that as like, if it was an asteroid with the building blocks for life. And you see, let's just say for the listeners, because I think most people in the world understand what a Walmart parking lot is. Picture a Walmart parking lot at night in the summer. There's no cars. It's all tarmac, pavement, whatever word you want to use. And sometimes you see that single dandelion growing in the middle of the parking lot. How did that get to be? Because from that perspective, that dandelion, it's looking around going, oh my God, I'm the only thing that exists. I can only see, and this would be Earth. I can only see things that just nothing can support life. How did I come to be? Well, what happened was there was lots of dandelions around, but you're in the middle of kind of nowhere. All the dandelions live in the forest and the fields, which if you look at the Milky Way, most of the other galaxies are a lot closer together. our solar system, we're like those hillbillies when you drive for like 2 hours of nothing, and then all of a sudden you see people living there, and you're like, what do they do out here? You know what I mean? That's like Earth in the cosmic scheme. So this dandelion in the crack, how did it come to be? Well, the seeds were blowing in the wind, and sometimes one drops, and most of the time it's going to break off and go to nowhere. But in this case, maybe if this is how Earth formed, maybe something like 3i Atlas came through billions of years ago and broke off, and a seed landed, and we already had water here, and it sort of melted, and the building blocks for life were perfect in the Goldilocks zone. That's like that dandelion in the parking lot. A seed landed in one of the cracks. That crack had enough soil and water and sunlight for that dandelion to grow. And that poor dandelion has grown. And to them, it goes, I'm the only dandelion that's ever existed. But how did it get there? It came from a seed that it'll never see again. 3i Atlas might be something like that. Or it could be something completely different. It could be theoretically, and we have to prepare for it. And the percentage of this probability means it's at least 5 to 10% possible. That's big. That this is technological. So it's emitting radio frequency. It's not outgassing the way we think it is. It's on a perfect hyperbolic trajectory at the 5% of the ecliptic, going perfectly close to all these planets to observe, and then use the momentum of the gravity of the sun to slingshot perfectly down to the next star system. It's beautiful. It's mathematical. So we need to look at those images from NASA. We need to see what this is. And if it is mostly metallic, then that means it's not an asteroid. And if it is metallic, what is it? It's elongated. It does rotate a little bit, so it's not going straight. It's rotating about once every 16 hours, but that's still pretty slow. And you could theorize that if it was artificial, maybe it's doing that for creating gravity on board.
Okay, so what I'm getting from what you're saying is that the primary impact that 3i Atlas is having on us, at least in the developed world, because I don't know if the news is out in the underdeveloped world, and if so, how it's impacting. But what I know about the technologized, industrialized world is that it's throwing us into a state of existential confusion and disarray that we're not really grappling with very well. And here's what I mean by that. In reality, we have no idea what it is. And so what we're trying to do is fit it into something that we already fit it into a context or a metaphor that we already know, because we are utterly incapable at this point of being so open that we are capable of experiencing something truly new. And this is happening at a time where our civilization is where civilization has been in every single one of the ancient myths at which our scientism outstrips our spirituality, and we are punished for it. I personally view 3i Atlas as an opportunity more than anything else. It's an opportunity to get back into a sense of wonder. It's an opportunity to reflect upon the paradigms in so many sciences, whether it be information science, psychiatry, and neurology, where our output is starting to exceed our explanation of it. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I do know, like, around the world, like, I was going to look it up, but I think in India they're celebrating 3i Atlas. I think today. Let me just double check. But there's like people around the world are aware of this. The reason that this is taking on a more biblical nature is that it's expected to approach closest to the Earth between December 3rd and 25th. Still right now, give or take a few days. And I mentioned that, and some people said, well, that has no meaning in Christianity because that wasn't even Jesus' birthday. But it's still a very important day in the Christian religion. And the fact that this thing would come through at that day.
Well, there's a significance to the 25th of December, and that date was important to Western civilization prior to the emergence of the Jesus myth or the existence of the flesh and blood Jesus, whichever it is that you're inclined to believe. It was the birth date of Mithras in the Mithras cult. And look, I happen to find value in Jung's idea that UAPs are partially a collectively generated and unconsciously generated experience due to certain social, economic, cultural pressures that offer an opportunity to behold and reflect upon something. The opportunity here for me is for science and for humanity to restore not only a sense of wonder, which I've spoken about before, but also its sense of humility. This sense of, I don't know. And what do we do when we don't know? How do we deal with being powerless to things?
That's what I don't get is why during a government shutdown is NASA not still monitoring interstellar objects? Because if this thing modifies its trajectory, there's a very small chance, but there's a chance that this could hit Earth and we would be screwed.
Yeah, well,
so why that? And if it was going to hit Earth, this is what I like. We first noticed it July 1st, and it was already in our solar system. It was already here. We actually noticed it by accident. And then when we reviewed the tape, sort of, we saw that there was evidence of it coming in back in May, but we didn't even catch it till the Atlas satellite saw it. And the Atlas satellite, like I said, is the asteroid terrestrial impact last alert system, meaning like it's already almost too late. If it was going to hit Earth, there's nothing we can do about it. That's what scares me. It's coming so fast, and it's because it's hyperbolic and it's going.
How do you know that there's nothing that we could do about it?
Well, there's nothing we can do about it as far as the technology that is known in public resources.
Okay, so I'm going to push back on that. I'm going to push back with a personal belief.
Well, because Bruce Willis is not feeling good, okay? He's not doing well. He's not saving us.
Don't bring up Bruce Willis. I'm really devastated about that. He was always one of my favorites, and I cannot believe the way that his legacy is being besmirched by this wife/alleged caretaker of his. And I actually don't know that he really has dementia or if he's poisoned because of what he knows about Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher, but we're not going to talk about
Okay. I didn't think a talk about 3-Eye Atlas and UFOs, the biggest conspiracy would be Bruce Willis.
Okay, so here's the thing. I happen to believe that I believe that consciousness is primary to the universe, that it is not downstream of anything, but rather that it is what created the universe. I also happen to believe that consciousness is not merely an individual, but also a collective phenomenon. I find value in the idea, for example, of morphic resonance, which has been put forward by Rupert Sheldrake. Also think that it is reasonable to consider and investigate the mechanisms by which collective action on the part of tens or hundreds of thousands of people at a time, singing, praying, chanting, etc., might be capable of literally moving mountains, stones, obelisks, etc. I'm not saying that I know that these things happen. What I'm saying is that my life experiences have given me a sense of humility that makes it very easy for me to see that just because we've never experienced, that doesn't mean that it's not possible. I would argue that if that 3 Atlas at bare minimum is an opportunity for human beings to reconsider what we're capable of. Who is to say that if we all joined hands and chanted after consultations with the religious leaders, the theologians, the art historians, etc., who would know what chants to utter, that we wouldn't be able to divert it? And what is wrong with human beings that we're so uninterested in our own survival, that we've become so detached and demoralized and are in such a state of obnoxious nihilism that we scoff at it rather than say, well, if we love ourselves and we want to keep thriving, then why not give it a try? There doesn't seem to be a lot of spirit of why not give it a try.
I think we can study art history to learn about UAPs. And, there's lots of evidence of anomalous objects in ancient art. We could talk about that. But if there's a huge object the size of Manhattan hurling at the Earth at 180,000 kilometers per hour, and you call an art historian, you might as well call modern day Bruce Willis, because it's going to be the same. You need scientists too. You didn't mention
because the conversation's already one that's embedded within STEM.
Yeah, I mean,
so what I'm introducing is something new. Let's talk about the 10
commandments. Sorry.
Most widely believed and understood hypotheses as to what ETs and UAPs are.
All right.
So the extraterrestrial hypothesis is that UFOs are spacecraft piloted by intelligent beings from other planets of star systems, often attracted by nuclear activity and Earth monitoring. The leading proponent of this is J. Allen Hynek, astronomer and former consultant for Project Blue Book, famous for his book, The UFO Experience, A Scientific Inquiry. The interdimensional hypothesis is that UFOs originate from parallel dimensions or alternate realities, allowing beings to enter our world without traveling through space. The leading proponent is Jacques Vallée, computer scientist and ufologist, renowned for his book Passport to Magonia on UFOs, Folklore, and Parallel Worlds. The crypto-terrestrial hypothesis is that UFOs are created by an advanced non-human intelligence that has coexisted with humans on Earth, hidden in remote areas like underground bases or oceans. Leading proponent, Mac Tunis, author and blogger, best known for his book, The Crypto-Terrestrials, a meditation on indigenous humanoids and the aliens among us. The time travel hypothesis. UFOs are vehicles from humanity's future, with time travelers visiting the past to observe or influence events. Leading proponent, Michael P. Masters, professor of biological anthropology at Montana Technical University, author of the book Identified Flying Objects, a multidisciplinary scientific approach. The industrial military hypothesis. UFO sightings are misidentifications of secret military aircraft, drones, or experimental projects developed by governments. Leading proponent, Mick West, science writer and founder of Metabunk, known for his book Escaping the Rabbit Hole, How to Debunk Conspiracy Theories Using Facts, Logic, and Respect. The natural phenomena hypothesis. Many UFOs are explained by atmospheric events like ball lightning, plasma formations, meteors, or optical illusions such as mirages. Leading proponent, Donald H. Menzel, Harvard astronomer, famous for his book, The World of Flying Saucers, a scientific examination of a major myth of the space age. I don't have a description for this hypothesis, but the ancient/breakaway civilization hypothesis is basically identical to the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, except that rather than there being a non-human breakaway intelligence, it is a human breakaway intelligence. There's also the judgment error hypothesis.
Is that similar to the ancient astronaut theory?
Let's assess after we get them all in. The judgment error hypothesis is that common objects like airplanes, satellites, weather balloons, or stars are mistaken for UFOs due to distance, lightning, or observer error. Leading proponent, Philip J. Klass, aviation journalist and UFO skeptic, author of the book UFO Explained. Psychosocial hypothesis. UFO reports stem from psychological factors, cultural influences, mass hysteria, or modern folklore, rather than psychological objects. Leading proponent, Carl Jung, renowned psychologist known for his book Flying Saucers, a modern myth of things seen in the skies. Two left. The paranormal hypothesis that UFOs represent non-physical beings such as angels, demons, or interdimensional spirits tied to religious or mythological interpretations. Leading proponent, John E. Mack, psychiatrist and professor at Harvard Medical School, famous for his book Abduction, Human Encounters with Aliens, and the hoax and fraud hypothesis that UFO sightings are deliberately fabricated using tricks, edited videos, or false testimonies for attention and profit. Leading proponent, James Oberg, space journalist and former NASA engineer, recognized for his writings debunking UFO claims, including articles in Skeptical Inquirer magazine. What do you think of that roundup, Ryan?
I mean, the truth is out there. I think that there could be, it could be all of that. We're in a church, but I think the least probable is...
I think that you're much too concerned about what's acceptable within the walls of this church. Basically, the conversations in this building are outrageous.
Okay, so of those 9, the one I would least put credence to is that they're angels and demons, unless you want to redefine what they are.
I think that the people who believe that view the language of angels and demons as being a mythological, literary grappling with something else, which is actually the foundation of the Snyderverse in the DC cinematic universe.
I'm a Marvel guy.
I don't know why I invited you on this show.
So we could dig deep into any of those.
Well, you're a scientist. So what is the most compelling, interesting, and worthwhile of inquiry for you?
I've never seen a UFO. I subscribed to UFO magazine when I was like 8. You know, most kids were asking for Nintendo Power magazine and stuff back when I grew up, or something else. And I had a subscription to Spider-Man and UFO magazine. I've always been interested in it. My grandmother told me a beautiful story, and one of the best evidence I think is in 1947 in the summer. There was a crash outside of a town called Roswell, New Mexico. Actually, it was a place called the Corona, she remembers a newspaper back then that said flying saucer crashed, alien bodies retrieved. That was in the news. And then they flipped a switch and said, it was a weather balloon and those were crash test dummies. And now there's been more evidence since then. And they're like, oh no, there's even a theory that they were special needs children from Russia sent on a weather balloon into America to test space theory. It's like crazy.
That's Annie Jacobson's reporting.
But like, that's just insane. I've actually driven. So the point I'm trying to say is I like evidence. So like, I've been to Rick Brazel's ranch, which is the guy who owned a ranch outside Roswell where it crashed. I've driven to Roswell, New Mexico from Canada and I took a tour that I hired from a local guy, not a company. I hired a local to take me around whose family has been around there. So his father was one of the guys working on the military base at the time in Roswell. He brought me to the funeral home where on that fated night, they asked for all of the children's-sized coffins, which is weird. And
wait a minute, what?
At Roswell, the night of the crash, at the funeral home,
okay,
the people from the military base went in and demanded that he give them all the children's-sized coffins. And he had about 6, and they took them.
What does that say to you? Because that lends weight to Annie Jacobson's ideas, which, by the way, prior to you saying that, I was never a big fan nor believer of.
There's too much other stuff that there's come out. Now, you know, the Roswell story gets interesting because something was recovered. Something
was recovered, but also the fact that it was reported in the paper as being a spaceship with alien bodies.
Yeah, some of them alive.
So one might say, well, the fact that it was turned around a few days later, it was all a mistake. It's a weather balloon. One could say, oh, well, it's obvious that there's a conspiracy, but one could also say the entire thing is a psychologically manipulative and brilliant trick, that in fact, what's being concealed is military technology or a foreign powers technology. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah. I've read the book. I think it's 1997. I'll just double check because, you know, I want to be clear on this stuff, but it's called The Day After Roswell. Yeah, the author was 1997. I was right. Philip J. Corso, RSO. You can look him up. He claims to be a U.S. Army Special Intelligence officer that was part of the crash retrieval, 1947 of the Roswell crash. And he said that the purpose of that was his job was to seed this alien technology through private industry to re-engineer it. And he claims that some of the technology we got from this crash include Kevlar.
Contact lenses, I've heard.
Yeah.
Fiber optics,
lasers. One of them was Velcro, and I was like, the Velcro is natural. That one was silly. But, you know.
Well, they don't all have to be winners, Ron.
So they said that the crash retrieval actually didn't just stay in Roswell, because Roswell is just everyone talks about Area 51. So Roswell, New Mexico is close to where the crash happened.
Yes.
Roswell's just the closest military base. So they took the stuff from Rick Brazel's place to Roswell. From there, everyone talks about Area 51. Area 51 is allegedly where they are re-engineering of this technology from a spacecraft perspective. But the bodies allegedly were brought to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, I think in Ohio. And there's lots of talk on that, you know, and there's been people that have claimed to, like Bob Lazar. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
He has a beautiful story of working at Area 51 in the 80s. And I actually knew a guy, and I'm not going to talk about his name. I don't want to. I have friends in Las Vegas, and one of them knew people that works for Area 51, which is called the Nevada Test Site to this day. And now with the advent of Google Earth and stuff, they kind of blur that area out. But he told me that they would pick contractors up from Vegas, and you get on a plane that's completely dark. And then when you land, they blindfold you, and they purposely drive you around longer than it takes to get to this place. And then you get there and you work. That still could just be a military operation. I never heard anything about alien stuff, but even to this day, Area 51, which is a real place, is still riddled with mystery. And there are many observations of anomalous objects from there. But given the technology we have now, that would feed into a couple theories. One, alien craft have been coming here and checking us out. But two, now that we've retrieved crashes, like there's reports of crashes all over the world. Brazil, Russia, China, like a lot of people.
Italy's a hotspot, which I never knew.
We could get it. I want to focus how we do this, but Italy is a big one because Italy is along some ley lines. And a lot of people, you know, Stonehenge and stuff, there's these, and the pyramids. Like I've been to the Bosnian pyramids, which were beautiful.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been there. I've been underneath, focused on the energy, and we don't even know who built them. A lot of people don't even say that they're real pyramids, but I've been inside them. They're beautiful. They're and we use lidar, and I've been a lidar technician in other jobs. LiDAR is where you fly an airplane or you can drive a car and you shoot lasers. And from there, you can send different pulses. So the first pulse can be told to bounce off quickly, like off vegetation. And then the last pulse is strong and meant to go all the way to the ground. What you can do is you can subtract the first pulse from the last pulse, and you can actually see what the ground looks like if there was no trees and stuff. And from that, we can see that's a pyramid. From that, we found ancient cities in
like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
That one is using ground penetrating radar. Yeah, that's like we go deeper. This is where we found like Aztec like cities that were previously not found because the jungle was on them. But when we strip it away, we just see them. You know, so we found cities like this. You can also use multi-beam sonar, which is like basically coating the ocean floor to find things, let's say, for lack of a better term, you might want to see if Atlantis was real. There's actual theories that Atlantis might have been in the area of the Azores. And there's actually some people going to check that out this year. Anyways.
Which of these technologies do you use in your work?
I've used them all. I've used LiDAR for years. I've used remote sensing data from satellites to monitor the ocean levels, multi-beam sonar.
Of the terrestrial surface, and how much of the oceanic expanse has been reliably mapped?
We've probably mapped all of the terrestrial surface. We've mapped almost all of Mars.
But what about the oceanic?
We've properly charted about 10% of the ocean, meaning 90% is effectively uncharted.
So what do you make of within, let's say, the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis, when in my notes I read remote areas, canyons, etc., but what I did not mention and should have mentioned was underwater faces. Do you have any thoughts or feelings or opinions on that?
So I'll just reiterate that I said 10%, but to modern standard, it's about 27%. It's still really low. And 10% would be what's multi-beam. 27% would be single beam, but it means points can be like kilometers apart. But because it's so deep, we consider it charted enough for safety. But I mean, complete bottom coverage, it can't be, it's less than 20%. Complete bottom, meaning in 3D. We can't go to the Marianas Trench using sonar from above. We actually have to go down and figure it all out with subs and stuff. It's so deep. It's along here actually, which is I'll look up how deep it is, but it's so deep that
well, show us on the globe where it is.
Sure. One second. I just want to see how deep is Marianas Trench. It's so deep that the pressure from down there would effectively just crush everything. Yeah, it's 36,000 feet deep, which is insane. You know what I mean? So it runs along here, sort of in Polynesia. Off the coast of Japan and Australia, sort of in this area. And it's so deep that we don't even know what's there. But also there's oceans that are about that deep in Antarctica that we don't even know because there's ice still there. And we've drilled through the core to complete darkness where sunlight does not reach. And what we found underneath the ice was when we got to the Antarctic Ocean, it was teeming with life, alien style life, meaning things that have developed different ways to feed and exist without using the sun, different processes, different things that generate their own light, things without eyes, stuff like this. So even on Earth, there's alien creatures.
So you're absolutely right. What is it within the realm of the work that you do to give some insight as to what's deep inside the Earth? Because given the size of the planet, we haven't really drilled down very far. And in grade school and in high school, we're taught that it's a solid iron. I forget what the word is. I think it's mantle. But are we certain?
I mean, lava's real,
Yes.
I don't know. I'll tell you what is interesting is the moon. The moon might be hollow. And I mean that honestly. We had a mission where we purposely kamikazed a drone into the moon to see what would happen. And it rang like a bell. And that really confused scientists. Like, why would it ring like a bell unless it was sort of hollow or at the very least sponge-like, like full of porous holes, but it wasn't solid.
And it's also and relative to the other satellites whirring around other planets, its trajectory is rather fixed.
The moon?
Yeah.
The moon, That's maybe, I want to believe that the universe is teeming with life, and it probably is statistically. But we as humans don't really exist without the moon. And one day the moon might even still just slowly crash into Earth. I don't know. But the moon regulates almost everything. The moon regulates tide. The moon regulates our food process. Like
The moon
everything
regulates human hormonal production.
makes us horny.
Are you open to the idea that the moon is a technology?
I'm open to the consideration that we have not really done much with the moon. We don't know anything about the dark side of the moon, meaning that one side of the moon is always sort of locked in with us. So there is another side of the moon we haven't officially really explored or mapped. And we have sensors that could take pictures of that side of the moon, but we haven't done it really. I'm more interested in the recent news of potential microbial life on Mars, in that
When did that break? What's going on with that?
that broke in September, and they found like kind of like weird looking rocks that they drilled into that looked like fossilized life, and they found the compounds, biological compounds, meaning it doesn't prove that it was life, but the compounds that they found in the rock match fossil records of biological sea creatures on Earth. So technically, you can't say this is evidence of life, but it looks like a fossil. And we drilled through and we found biological compounds or organic style compounds, organic compounds that usually are formed through biology, through living creatures. And if we found these on Earth, we would say, yes, that's life. And NASA's saying that this is the best evidence we've ever had of life. Problem is, it's drilled from a rover and we don't actually have the sample. So until we had the sample, we're limited by the sensors on these rovers, which weren't even sort of developed for these extra questions we have. It's even amazing that we have these rovers, but NASA's basically giving us a slow reveal saying, there was probably life on Mars. It's pretty much confirmed. Like, I'm willing to say that on camera. It's pretty much confirmed. There's lots of papers out about it. NASA did a big press conference. We just need to know, we have to double check. But if that's true, then that would lead the theory, one of your theories, that humans might not even be native to Earth. We might be, planetary pioneers hopping from one to the other as we need to survive, or maybe just life in general, carbon-based life. Like, carbon is not even that, like, in the universe, I think carbon's like 0.2%. It's very rare. It's a rare thing to be a carbon life. Most likely life out there is going to be something completely different. There's silicone-based, but AI, maybe humans are creating life, literally.
Well, Marshall McLuhan said that human beings are the sex organs of the universe.
Maybe that's what 3i Atlas is too.
How so?
Like I said, it might have the compounds for life, and it's breaking off pieces and seeding planets, whether it's on purpose or not. I'm going to say it here because it's awkward, I'm a staunch agnostic. So an atheist, I think, is too close-minded to say there is no God, case closed, move on, like Neil deGrasse Tyson or something. But for someone to also say the only answer is God, I'm looking at a picture of Jesus right now, that's it. If you have any questions, it's God. Both of those, you're very arrogant to assume you know the answer to everything. One, the answer is it's all just cosmic, coincidence. And the other is it's beautifully constructed by a divine entity, and there's all a purpose in the 10 Commandments and blah, blah, blah. But if you go in the middle, you go, what if we haven't defined what God is? What if God is something like 3i Atlas or something else, like a cosmic organic cloud that kind of goes through solar systems? And if it goes through a planet, kind of like picture like a cloud, and within that cloud, it just dusts the Earth with the things that are chemically compounded that it could fall life. And look how much of this globe is blue. Blue is beautiful. Blue is water. That means if ice lands, like a comet lands in there, it can slowly thaw out over time. So anything that was organic and in there and still viable, if you melt it slowly, it could come out of stasis. So trilobites, those things can survive in space. They can just curl up. They're little itty bitty creatures. They can theoretically come from Earth to Mars, freeze, roll up, and survive. They can do it. They can live in lava. It's crazy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then also there's an actual scientific theory that like octopi and squids, like whatever those creatures are called, I'm sorry, I don't know what those kind of creatures are, but squid and octopus are alien, meaning they're so genetically unique to everything else we have on Earth. There are theories that millions of years ago, whatever those are, because octopus and squids can go really small and they can that they might have been embedded in a comet and it landed in our ocean and melted, and it was the proper conditions for life and they just started thriving.
This seems like a good time to ask you about SETi.
Sure. Do you know what SETi is?
Yes.
Okay, it's your show.
No. Tell me about your experience with SETi.
So SETi is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and they operate in a consortium of different satellites around the world, most prominently the Very Large Array in New Mexico. And on my way home from my trip in Roswell with my good buddy Charlie, we decided to follow the Billy the Kid highway, meaning we wanted to follow where Pat Garrett, the sheriff from Roswell, went to go get Billy the Kid in real life, arrest him and bring him back. And that's a true story. And there was a beautiful movie called Pat Burying Billy the Kid from the 70s, which Bob Dylan is in and wrote the beautiful song 1973, Knocking on Heaven's Door. So shout out Dylan. And we found the town. It was beautiful. It was like this little town. I can't remember the little name, and it still looks old. And then as we left the town, we were driving for nothing. Like there was nothing around us. And we came over this hill, and there is like an insane number of massive satellites. And I thought, what the hell is that? And we pulled in, and it was the Very Large Array where SETi is. And we got to go around. We got to see the instruments they're doing. It's actually where they film the movie Contact. We talked about it earlier.
Well, hold on. You just drove up and they let you in? What am I missing?
Yeah. It's
and was that because of particular credentials or clearances that you had as a scientist?
I wish it was just if you find yourself out there, there is a small little information area. And
All right.
Yeah. So it is run by the U.S. taxpayer government. So they have to have some form of, And through SETi, we've been looking and we haven't really found much, except I got to get the date. We found something at some point. You've probably heard of it called the WOW signal. Do you remember that?
Yes.
In 1977, which is around when we actually launched Voyager. So SETi found it August 15, 1977, and it's called the WOW symbol because there was different numbers written down, and he just circled them and literally wrote like wow. That's all it said. That's why it was called the WOW, because he went wow. And we haven't heard anything since. Interestingly enough, that was also transmitted to us at 1420 megahertz, which is the same frequency that we just received something from 3i Atlas. And the other thing that's beautiful is when we tracked the trajectory of 3i Atlas and we modeled it back 40 years ago, 50 years ago to 1977, it was in the same area. Why is that important? It's at the same frequency. It was in the same area. And now this thing is here. There is theory that Atlas was the originator of the WOW signal, and now it's here. We never really deciphered what the WOW signal was, but it was in a Fibonacci sequence. So I don't know if the WOW signal and whatever we received from 3i Atlas was the same. So this is breaking. I don't know. But this will get you views on this video. That is crazy.
Now, how does and how do we know from which direction a radio signal comes?
So we scan the skies, and if one satellite gets it, they point all of them in the same area. And if they're all getting it, because we have them pointed and we can do them from different satellites around the world,
right?
We can triangulate the coordinates.
Okay.
And that's how GPS works. So when you are driving with your phone and you use Google Maps and it tells you where you are, it's because all it needs is 3 different locations. And what they do is 1, 2, 3, they intersect, and you just think of a Cartesian plane. So you're driving somewhere. This is us.
Okay.
As long as you get a response from 3 different satellites, the point that they intersect actually gives you a coordinate. So we do that in space as well. And from that, we can determine where it was. So the WOW signal, let's find out where it was a strong signal. They said, wow, it came from Sagittarius constellation. And that's where the Atlas is coming from. It's probably a coincidence, but it's also crazy. It's the same hertz, I want to look it up now. It's at the time of this podcast, it was breaking news.
So so do you know of anything that naturally transmits that frequency on Earth? Is there anything that you know of? Is it a common frequency for music or anything like that?
So yeah, like that frequency is often also like sun bouncing off water can give that. So that can be natural. This can be
And we're not having a flat Earth conversation involving the firmament?
No, I don't want to talk about flat Earth. But,
Okay.
it's not a random. It's the frequency of neutral hydrogen. It's the most abundant element in the universe. So this is the first time an interstellar object and the WOW frequency have overlapped. The Fibonacci modulation pattern adds a layer of potential artificiality, though it also could be an artifact in the data. That's what they all say. So like
Can you explain something to me? I don't understand why a Fibonacci sequence would necessarily be technological or constructed when it just seems to be a physicalization of the purest principles of mathematics that emerge beautifully in something as mundane and quotidian as a Romanesco.
So it shows up in nature like flower petals.
So then why is the Fibonacci sequence being present as part of the 3I Atlas story so troubling if it appears in nature so commonly?
Okay, so if it was just natural noise from some object that was just emitting stuff, you'd think that it would be periodic noise or chaotic, but Fibonacci sequences are progressive, and they're precise, and they're non-repeating, and they're numerically meaningful. So meaning there's a structure. So we only see it when there's a structure. So it would not be emitting from a chaotic outgassing of water. To see it, we only see that, like I said, building a flower petal, or a spiral galaxy. But a spiral galaxy has composition, and so this emitting a Fibonacci sequence, same like the WOW, it's non-repeating, it's non-random, it's sequenced, and we can draw it. It's some sort of structure. So because of that, it's not nothing, and we got to look at it. So at the time of this podcast, you might be one of the first podcasts to be publishing the fact that 3I Atlas is even emitting frequencies from the same area that the WOW signal came at the same frequency. And I'll just say, like, that's what the podcast should be called. WOW, 3I Atlas broadcast or something like that, So I'm really excited about this. Keep in mind that
what's your excitement coming from?
Even if this is a natural object, it's so different than what we're used to that we're showing our limitations of human knowledge. And I love that. It means, like, in Marvel University, it's what happens, at the end of time. We don't know. So we don't know anything beyond this. You brought up another thing that we don't know. Even the best scientists in the world, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
We're here today because we're friends. And it turns out that in the midst of this extremely significant news story, that of 3I Atlas, that you also happen to be a ufologist and an environmental engineer. So let me ask you, when it comes to ETs, when it comes to UAPs, when it comes to this phenomenon, what excites you, what scares you, what confuses you, and what do you feel certain of?
Do I have to go in that order?
No,
Okay.
Absolutely not.
I'm certain that we are not alone. I'm certain of that, for the pure fact that if we are the only thing that's ever existed in the universe, boy, are we wasting our time driving to work, complaining about politics and money and wasting time on war. So I am certain that we aren't alone, even at the microbial level. And I think any scientist that truly believes that there's nothing out there but Earth, that's becoming the minority. That's becoming the rare scientist. That's becoming the guy that even on your committee is the weirdo. Like I said, we almost certainly just found evidence of microbial life on Mars, and maybe we planet hopped here. So I'm certain that we're not alone. What I'm confused about, I'm going in reverse order, is why do we not see evidence of life everywhere? Why does it seem so quiet? And there's some theories about that. One is, and I sort of touched on it earlier, that we are in a cosmic backcountry. Our solar system is quite far away and quite young compared to everything else. So we're kind of new and we're alone. When you look at the Milky Way and you look at other star systems, they're close together. And we see other galaxies are close together. The Milky Way, even in the Milky Way, there's trillions of suns in the Milky Way. Or no, there's like 900 billion suns, and then that means there's probably trillions of planets. Let me look up how many suns in Milky Way. They just put it in perspective. So I'm confused that if there's that much out there, that this would be the only place ever that anything's ever known. So in the Milky Way alone, there's between 100 and 400 billion stars. That's just in the Milky Way. So, and the Milky Way itself is 100,000 light years across. And that's just the Milky Way. And then that's just one galaxy. And there's 100 billion other galaxies. So if there's 400 billion stars, there's at least 400 billion planets. But most solar systems have more than one. Most solar systems have more than one planet. So there's potentially in the Milky Way alone trillions of planets.
Have we actually seen a planet outside our solar system, or is this hypothetical?
Yeah, we've seen other planets.
Okay.
Yeah, there's crazy planets out there. There's rogue planets. Like there's Jupiters. What I mean by Jupiters, just think of Jupiter, like big gas giant with a ring. There's Jupiters that have been effectively kicked out of their solar system, and they're rogue. They're flying through the universe on their own. No star system, which is crazy.
So why can't 3i Atlas be that?
It's too small. It's too fast.
How do we know?
Well, because we can see it.
But too fast based on what?
A planet wouldn't move that fast on its own trajectory. Planets are massive. This is an object.
And I'd like you to clarify something. Planets aren't always solid.
No. There's in our solar system ourselves, we have four rock and 4 gas. My son loves the space. He's 5. He knows them all. We're the 3rd rock from the sun. That's where the show comes from. And then it's Mars. Everything past Mars are gas giants. Everything from Mars towards the sun are all rock planets. That's as simple as this universe is. Solar system.
Pluto's no longer a planet, correct?
It's a.
And is it rock or is it?
Pluto is rock. Yeah, I guess it's a bit of an anomaly. It was rock, gas, and then Pluto. Pluto has moons itself, It's called I think it's a dwarf planet. Yeah, it's a dwarf planet. So, and there might be another planet beyond Pluto too, Planet X. Like we know it might exist based on gravity and stuff.
And every ancient mythology.
Yeah, Nibiru and the 10th planet, Sakurai Sitchin. Anyway, so what confuses me is why don't we know that there's life out there? Why haven't we seen it? Now, at the start of Contact, I love that you start on planet Earth and you hear like Sheryl Crow and whatever was playing in 97. And as you go further into space, you start to hear things from the 80s, and then it goes past our solar system, and then we hear, the end of. I hear end of World War II and blah blah blah, and that's why the planet responded with the Hitler 1936 Berlin game. It was the first one they got because you're actually going back in time based on how long these waves take to get. But it zooms out to show that even where we're broadcasting from, even when you zoom out, we are a speck of dust on a beach. So my confusion is how come we don't see evidence that there's other life out there? There's theories. There's one, we're just too far away. 2 is the dark forest hypothesis. I like this hypothesis, and it scares me that Stephen Hawking's warned about this. He's saying that, there's certain things that we don't know, and if aliens are benevolent or not, we don't know. But the dark forest hypothesis is, put simply, and I hope that people that watch this, anything needs correcting, go ahead, because once again, we're comedians too. The dark forest hypothesis is quite simple. It means when you enter a dark forest at night, we're always scared because we know there's things there, because during the day, the forest is loud and teeming with life. But at night, forests are quiet. Why? Because there's predators and nothing wants you to know they're around, and because it's dangerous. So it's possible that other alien civilizations, if they exist, they don't want us to know they're there because it's dangerous. And what did we do as soon as we developed space travel is we friggin' sent things out. We're shooting out signals to let them loud and clear know that we're here. And we sent out the Voyager mission with Do
you think that was a bad idea?
Might be, because we gave all the information about it. And we assumed, given the mentality that we had at the time, that if we aren't alone, everything's going to be good. And the only way that we can consider that technology could get so good that they could have interstellar travel is that they've gone to this plane above war and conflict, and they're totally peaceful. But how do we know that? We don't know.
What if another form of life went down a path of more vitalistic or spiritual technology and are able to transcend the limitations of space and time, and also haven't resolved violent, domineering tendencies inside of themselves?
What scares me is thinking that there are things out there that may not have good intentions, and we are just broadcasting our location willy-nilly, assuming that they're going to come here for good. And what excites me is finding out that we aren't alone finally. I really hope we find out in my lifetime, and I maybe got to take better care of myself to extend that. But in my lifetime, I want to know, are we alone? Because if we're not, that has such big implications. It just means we're not special. I think it's really arrogant that humans think that this is the only place that's ever had life and that.
That no one believes that.
Well, even the Vatican says that if they've changed their tunes, that if we find evidence of another extraterrestrial life, it was God's creation too. Well, I actually don't think that's a bad stance because, as I said, what is God? God could be this creative force. In the Alien franchise by Ridley Scott, we were created by the engineers. H.P. Lovecraft has the old ones theory where cosmic horror, I love it, meaning that the Cthulhu and stuff. Yeah, and humans have had these theories about coming from the stars for, it doesn't matter whether they're ancient Western civilization, Eastern or indigenous. The indigenous people of North America, they had talk of star children and stuff too. Like, it's not a new concept. What is Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. And Randall Carlson is one of the guys going to the Azores with groups of people to look for evidence of Atlantis using sonar. He and Graham Hancock have a theory.
Is that the part of Africa that has the concentric circles?
No, Azores are islands in the smack dab in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and they're currently Portuguese, but they've only been inhabited for a certain amount of time. So here's Newfoundland, here's Europe, and these Azores are, man, they're right in the middle. They don't even have them on here. That's crazy. Here they are, right in the middle.
Okay.
They're Portuguese currently.
We'll see how long that lasts.
So what excites me is finding out that we're not alone. You talked earlier about consciousness. I think unless we can develop wormhole technology so that we can traverse the universe using like Stargate technology, meaning quantum physics. So you can open up a wormhole theoretically and go from one spot of the universe to another pretty much instantaneously. The beauty of this theory is that you wouldn't age, but also from the time it took you to leave this galaxy to the other one, millions of years wouldn't have passed on Earth either. Because in the movie Interstellar, and in theory, if you're in a spaceship traveling at the speed of light on the spaceship, you might get there in 3 weeks. You might get there in 3 weeks because space-time slows down. 4 million years have passed. So everybody is dead now. I don't like that. That scares me. But through a wormhole, you're just traversing space-time. So it's my son, who's 5. He even does this. What's the closest distance between 2 points? Well, you fold it and then you pop a pencil through. And that's the closest. You bend space-time. So wormholes are, that's the only way I can see to get there using technology. But there is a theory, and you can think about it, is consciousness might be another way that we can communicate with other life forms. And this is where it gets a little off the rails. The science, it's difficult. There was actually Joe Rogan had a scientist on today, actually, who's talking about mapping the DMT realm. DMT is dimethyltryptamine. It is the chemical compound produced in nature. It's in our pineal glands. We don't know what it does, but if you ingest it, smoke it, or drink it through ayahuasca, which is an ancient South American drink that has inhibitors for your stomach so that you can actually break down DMT.
DMT is broken down by monoamine oxidase very quickly.
Yeah.
So most formulations of ayahuasca contain an extract that's more DMT than anything else, along with a botanical MAOI.
Yeah, MAOI inhibitor. So Andrew Galmore was on today, and I was watching it, and he's looking at the science of DMT, and he's trying to think about it from how our brains are very complex, and they actually use less power than even a simple computer, but we can do so much with it. But when we dream, we're dreaming about things we know. When we dream, we're dreaming about things it's like our brain kind of resetting. We don't know exactly why we dream, but it's probably like the brain kind of decluttering, like defragging. But when you take DMT, all of a sudden, like, you can only dream about what you kind of know or can envision. But when you take DMT, it's like everything is crystal clear, and there's complex geometric patterns that are so precise that it's insane that our brains are even processing it. And there's lots of theories that, what is it? Where do you go on DMT? Are you seeing the source code of the universe? Is DMT a way to prove it's a simulation like in the Matrix?
Well, to me, it's very clear that what it does is it uncovers it liberates us from the individualization of consciousness. We experience collective consciousness as it really is. That's how it occurs to me.
I haven't done DMT because it's illegal. If that changes, I'd like to. I know you can get religious exemptions. Similar drugs would be peyote or high doses of psilocybin mushrooms. But those are mostly hallucinations. With DMT,
Yeah, but what's a hallucination?
well, a hallucination is a changing of reality to make you see something.
How do we know it's not a change to attunement?
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe DMT changes the frequency resonance in your brain so that we're able to receive different, it's like retuning our brain temporarily, and we can start tuning into consciousness or something else, the structure of the universe. And the cool thing is there's lots of research going on. I mentioned Andrew Gilmore, and maybe not Gilmore, Gallimore. And people are starting to map out the DMT realm. I didn't think we were going to go down this road, but it's pretty cool. And the weird thing is that people have noticed similar structures, similar areas, and similar creatures. Now, these creatures, whatever they are, some people, there's little ones, machine elves, some of them are big, benevolent things, but they often kind of warn us about the nature of humans and Earth. And very similar, it's a very similar experience to like the abduction theory in UFO, UAP lore, where most of the creatures that people say they talk to, like Whitley Strieber and the Fire in the Sky, Travis Walton. Well, Travis had a terrible time. So Whitley Strieber, he wrote Communion. It was a beautiful book. He's actually written science fiction, but Communion, and a good movie with Christopher Walken based on a real encounter he had. They warned him about...
Although he's uncertain whether his encounter was physical.
Yeah, I don't think it was sleep paralysis. I don't think so, but it could have been...
Intentional.
Yeah, and that is maybe what DMT is going down. Now, keep in mind, this is all speculative, but I don't think that... So DMT, we have it in our pineal gland. And actually, that eye of Ra on your... Right here, can you show people?
Yeah, absolutely. I wore it because I thought this might come up. Actually, I'm lying. I had no idea. But here.
So that actually is an ancient Egyptian symbol, the Eye of Ra. We have it on the $1 bill, but it's actually a cross-section perfectly of the pineal gland. So how did ancient civilizations know to worship the gland that produces DMT? And there is literature out there that even says that religion has a DMT around the sacred bush that was burning, gave people visions. Well, you go back to Israel, you talk to sacred bush, it's a certain bush that has DMT properties, and then you're burning it and you're smoking and people are tripping. The stoned ape theory by Travis McKenna and stuff like that, where they say that it's possible that human evolution, the brain, the doubling of the brain by 200% in 2 million years or less, happened because apes were eating mushrooms,
which were growing everywhere because of the quick thawing following the, was it an ice age 11,600 years ago?
Oh, no, that would be, this is like millions of years before that. The last ice age is Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock's theory that humans are a species with amnesia. Now we're finding bones, human bones, developed bones that are about 1 million years old. We thought modern humans are about a quarter of that old, right? Lucy, about 250,000 years old, maybe around that time. And if that's the case, then we've been human for way longer than we think. And because of that, and things like Göbekli Tepe and all that stuff, all these common stories in all of religion, including Sumerian and Babylonian about this great flood, that probably happened. The Sphinx. Who built the Sphinx? It wasn't Egyptians. In fact,
I know I've known many people raised in Egypt who all told me that in their schools, they're taught that whoever built that was not them.
Yeah.
And Cleopatra, it's important to note, was confounded by the construction of the pyramids.
Well, think about it. If an ice age that happened between 13,600 years ago and 12,500 years ago happened because of an asteroid or meteor impact, it reduced humans down to less than 1% of current population at the time. They know that.
And everyone left would have been really freaked out.
Well, the people that survived, as far as I know this theory, would have been people far away from the water, far away from anything. And right now, even during COVID, we almost fell apart, right? And we were still connected. Imagine COVID plus, so some sort of catastrophe plus a big EMP pulse that takes out the grid, no internet, no electricity. We're effed, dude. Like, we're effed. We would regress so fast to some sort of zombie level scenario. And because of that, humans were reduced in population to less than 1%. They said at some point could be as low as 10,000 humans were only alive not that long ago, like in 14,000 years ago. And they probably were in the Amazon and like the Russian wilderness and the mountains of China and the fertile crescents of places in Africa. And it would have taken us a while to like develop, hunter gather, rebuild, and then all of a sudden we start building farms. And now because civilization did not start in Babylonia. We know that that's where we have modern history, but Göbekli Tepe is 3 times older than that. And it is not a hunter and gather structure. I've been to Turkey as well. It's very old and ancient, but like we don't know who built the Bosnian pyramids. Humans are possibly and most likely a species with amnesia. So when we finally came out of there through the Fertile Crescent of the Nile up, you're like, holy crap, look at these structures. Let's settle here. This must be important. The same vein, the Stonehenge. Who the heck built that? What is the purpose? Well, the only thing that we know is that the Stonehenge and the pyramids and the Aztec temples, they're along magnetic ley lines. We don't know the importance of that, but theoretically that could be like, sort of lat long. If you were using technology craft to use the energy, it would be like, think of like highways. So that's why in Chile, along the ley lines, and Peru, they have the Nazca lines. Those are those weird engravings in the earth, like hundreds of meters big, maybe even kilometers big, that when you view it from aerial views, you see it's a monkey, it's a snake, it's something else. But from the ground, you would never know it. And there shouldn't be technology that we could be that high to know. So were they doing that for the star people? Were they doing that because it was like a landing pattern? Were we trying to communicate with humans or whatever that had technology? And then the other thing about UAPs and stuff that confuses me is why do they show up at critical times? So that's where that time travel theory might be something. So UFOs really started showing up around World War II. So the band, the Foo Fighters,
in the way that we currently describe them.
Yeah. So in the way flying saucers, the way we describe it. Now, these could be something else entirely. We're saying that they could be alien spacecraft because that's what we know now. So back, Jacques Vallée, you mentioned him. He had a beautiful book, one of the best books I ever read, I think 2010, called Wonders in the Sky. And it's about the UAP. And UAP just means unidentified aerial phenomenon because
now it means anomalous because there's so much interest in what's happening.
Anomalous phenomenon because it could be USO, unidentified submerged objects. And we got the Tic Tac video where that thing is just whipping through the water. We don't know what the hell it is. So in those stories, like, when Alexander the Great's army came to one of the big rivers, I think in Afghanistan or maybe Western India, he was about to cross and then flying metallic shields buzzing his guys scared them. Metallic shields. Okay. Even in the Bible, this is a classic one. I'm not breaking any news here. 3i Atlas is breaking news. This is just, but what's his name's wheel in the Bible? Ezekiel's wheel.
Plastic bread.
Ezekiel's wheel talks about geometric structures and patterns coming and a being inside coming and kind of talking to us about stuff. And if you want to even talk about religion, it's possible religion exists to explain this. Angels come down from the top. Halos are circular beams of light coming down from creatures, species, things up there to tell us about how to be a better person, to be divine. That doesn't mean we go to heaven. It means if you want to transcend this cosmic prison that we're currently in now, maybe the best way to do it is follow the good parts of these religious texts that I think are rooted in pretty good. I don't know much about the Eastern religion, but I know that they transcend some of them in Buddhism and stuff in Tibet and in India. They try and transcend and they go into a state like DMT through transcendental meditation. There might be something there. Who knows? They deep breathing. But the ancient texts, the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, there's like principles that are beautiful. And if you live life by, that's great. It's where the interpretation comes off that I personally start to go, I don't know, because then you're trying to tell me that you know everything. But I think it's a beautiful sort of like take on it because it helps answer some of the ancient questions that humans as a species have always asked before any Judeo-Christianity was even there. All the ancient humans, all of them, even cave people, looked up and said, where do we come from and why are we here? Even some of the basic stuff. We've always looked up, and I don't want to say worship the stars, but wondered. And I don't think I'm saying anything here that's going to slap, like, I'm not saying anything controversial. I'm just saying this is how I feel. But I do see a beauty in knowing science. And I do see a beauty in people that follow religion because it is attempting to give answers. And where I'm in the middle is I think we have more questions than answers. And I don't want you to say it's all because of the Big Bang and it's all random, or it's all because God created us, and don't ask any more questions. Think about other things. There's a beauty in not worrying about that. And there's a beauty in going, oh, it doesn't matter what I do because nothing is preset. I'm staying in the middle and go, there's something about quantum entanglement where there's theories that for every particle, there's an antiparticle. And when you charge that up, it could be 20,000 light years away. But if they're linked and you charge this up with electron, this one heats up too instantly. But the distance can be unfathomable. How is that possible? Science doesn't know. And that excites me because maybe there's technology out there that has figured it out. And if we're not alone and something has transcended to a different plane, consciousness or whatever, that's beautiful. I've had a dream ever since I was a little kid, and my son, who's 5, had the same dream. What the heck is this about? And he told me about it. Like when my best friend passed away last year, I was all sad. And he said, Dada, don't worry, because Uncle so-and-so, I don't want to mention his name because I'll get upset. It was a good guy, and only bad guys go to ACDC, which is what he calls hell. Hell, ACDC.
Because bisexuals are all Satanists.
I said, well, what happens to the good guy? What happened to Uncle Grant? And he goes, Grant's a good guy. His energy went up and became a star. I was like, that's beautiful, because we are stardust. We are part of carbon. I go, how do you know which star is Uncle Grant? And he goes, at night, when you talk, it's the one that twinkles back. What a beautiful, if that's what he believes, I am not going to correct him. It's spiritual. It's insightful. It's scientific. It's beautiful. It is better than I could have given him by telling him the scientific route purely. It's better than I could have given him if I just put him into Sunday school and that's all. He thought that too. And I asked him where he came up with that. And he said he had a dream at night about this. And I've had a dream reoccurring when I was a little kid. And I stopped having it about 15, 16. In this dream, I'm whipping through as fast. It's beyond the words I can describe. And we're almost in like a cosmic tunnel. And I can look around, but I don't have a body. I can look around and I'm an orb, a color. I'm a color. And there's other colors around me. And when they communicate, they kind of light up. And for some reason, I'm not alone. I'm not afraid. And we're traveling at an incredible speed. And all of a sudden, it feels like a lasso around me pulls me. And I fly out of this cosmic highway, this tunnel. And I'm flying through what I guess is through our Milky Way galaxy at an impossible speed, our solar system. Bam, I'm on the Earth. And I remember being born and living my whole life, but fast forward, back in the day, the VHS. Fast forward, I don't hear anything. I just see my life. Boom. I don't even know. I had a kid's wife, everything. And then all of a sudden I'm gone. And I fly out of my body and I leave Earth. And as I'm leaving Earth, I look down, and around Earth, I can see all these like things flying around it. And for some reason, I know that those are animals and nature, so that whatever the energy of those creatures stay around the Earth. And then there's other colors I could see that represented some people, some energies of whatever we are. But then a lot of them were shooting off back up to the cosmic highway. And then there was things shooting down. And I don't know what that means. It feels very advanced, but to me, it represented whatever we call a soul.
Have you ever studied Rudolf Steiner?
Is that a Christmas story?
No, he was a German vitalist. Let's just say that might be a good idea for you. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy over here is Ryan Sim. He is a ufologist. He is an environmental engineer. He has been here to talk to us today about 3 Atlas and everything that it prompts and provokes in terms of scientific inquiry and technological speculation. Ryan, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.